Deadly violence breaking out along the border of Venezuela and Brazil over Venezuela's humanitarian crisis. At least 2 people were killed and about a dozen injured. Opposition leader Juan Guaido plans to bring aid into Venezuela tomorrow in defiance of embattled dictator Nicolas Maduro. Joining me now is former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski. Corey, great to see you. Thanks for being here. I wanted to start talking to you about what the president has done internationally, because, again, he is clearly leading. The United States is leading the way on so many things in the world. Without nation building, we don't want to get involved in that again, but we don't want to lead from behind the way we had with the previous administration. You look at what's happened with our NATO allies, forcing them to step up to the plate with their own defense. With Venezuela, what's happening there? Instead of just sitting back and saying, we can't do anything about it, we get involved and try to do something about it. Same with ISIS in Syria. Same with North Korea. Is this something that's going to be emphasized leading into the 2020 reelection campaign?
Well, it will be emphasized by the campaign, but obviously not by most of the media. They don't want to give this president the credit for once again exerting American dominance on the world stage and reminding everybody of how great of a superpower we are, but encouraging them to come along with us. This country was the first country to call on Maduro to leave. This country is going to put the coalition together to put 20 and 30 and 40 other nations to join with us to bring change to Venezuela. Donald Trump is the one who went to the UN and said, you have to pay your fair share. And our friends in the media laughed at us. They said he's embarrassing our allies around the world. But listen to what has happened. $100 billion more in the coffers of world organizations because our friends are finally paying their fair share. This is the president leading the world as it's supposed to be done.
And you mentioned the media. I hate to say it, but you think of 2 stories next week. The president in Vietnam with the North Korean leaders trying to get them to denuclearize, this time with some real substance as a result of these talks, really going out of his way to make the world a more peaceful place. And these hearings with Michael Cohen, his discredited lawyer in Washington, kind of a show trial or it is going to be a show of a certain kind. What do you think the media is going to give more attention to? Something that's completely insignificant or something that has deep significance, not just for us, but for the whole world?
Well, look, they should be focusing on the world peace and the fact that denuclearizing North Korea should be the priority, and many others have tried it. Donald Trump is going to achieve it. But you and I both know the salacious, false accusations and comments that Michael Cohen is going to go up to Capitol Hill and make is what the media is going to cover. As opposed to giving this president the credit that he deserves, they're going to focus on a man who has now been convicted of lying to Congress, a man who is a convicted felon is going to jail. That's what the media is going to focus on. They don't want to focus on the good work that this president is doing overseas and here domestically.
Let's talk about the rough and tumble of politics going into the 2020 election. We don't see much of a middle ground in the Democratic Party anymore. I mean, it's almost all to the left, from the far left to the socialist left. Is that making Trump reelection folks happy, the fact that they have so isolated themselves in this one left-wing corner? Does that make them easier to beat from your perspective?
Well, I think if you look, can you imagine for 1 second if Donald Trump had honeymooned in the USSR, the former Soviet Union, like Bernie Sanders did? Think of the media outcry. But the point is this. Middle America, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, the places that Donald Trump won that many other Republicans couldn't win, will never vote for the socialism agenda that the Democrats are now pushing. They don't believe, nor do I, that you redistribute people's wealth. That may fly in California and in Massachusetts, where Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren are from, respectively, but it doesn't work in Middle America. So if they become the nominee of their party, I'm going to predict Donald Trump wins an even bigger electoral victory than he did the last time.
You know, you may well be right, Corey, but I am concerned about the younger people in America. It's interesting that Ronald Reagan, who was an old guy when he was elected, and even older, of course, when he was reelected, had a great amount of support from young people. A lot of people thought because the age difference there, that he wouldn't have much support. It turned out he had a great amount of support from young people. But that was 35 years ago. Since then, we have a whole new generation that's been educated by left-wing elites in colleges, not just the Ivy Leagues, but all through colleges. You think of Ocasio-Cortez, she was from Boston University. That's where she got her economics degree, which led her to be a socialist. I mean, it's kind of frightening to think of the new generation and what has happened to them in terms of how they've been educated, isn't it?
Well, it's scary because I understand what those institutions are teaching. You don't see conservatives being offered fellowships at large, well-known institutions.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. But let me tell you what Donald Trump is doing. He is bringing the African-American population back to the Republican Party. What he's done on criminal justice reform, what he's done by putting people back to work, cuts across the demographics and the socioeconomic status, and they're going to turn out in record numbers for this president come 2020. And if that happens, the Democrats should be scared to death, because if Donald Trump gets 10% of the African-American vote in the next election, there's no path for the Democrats.
Well, and Corey, don't forget the Latin American vote. I mean, everybody thinks because he's tough on border security, the Latins hate him. Not true. I'm very tied into the Latin American community. I know it well. I covered Latin America for 12 years. He's got a lot of support among Latin Americans who came to the United States for the right reasons to work here. They've established roots. They rebuilt Miami. There are a lot of people that in the Latin American community who support Donald Trump. Final last word. Go ahead.
Well, and that's because he is tough on illegal immigration. The people that came here legally don't want to see illegals coming and taking their jobs. They're with this president on securing our border, and they will turn out in the 2020 election.
Corey Lewandowski, always a pleasure, Corey. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.